kidney has a very special place in the heart. Our army manned the airport. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do. When they gaze upon Yosemites,
All right, we're about to get started. Oh, that was a big new like. Thanks very much, Lisa Evans. Excellent. Hi, chat room. Oh, it's very exciting. That's right, hit the like early. It annoys the maggot in your family if I show up in their algorithm. We can't have riots out there and not have a riot in here. What's up? All right. Okay, welcome to the show, everybody. Happy Monday. I mean, those are contradiction in terms if I've ever heard one. Joining us today, I've got two Taras, but I have them one at a time, unlike those uncouth animals over at Substack. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may, Tara Devlin joining us in the first hour, Tara Dublin in the second. Tara Squared, we would have called him in high school. Thank you, Jules, for the super chat. And Tara, I apologize. It's a Monday with no news, and we really just will sit there. So trading recipes for chicken fricassee or frickin' chickasee. I always get those mixed up. Right.
I really wish, right?
Yeah. So again, where to start? I happen to think that this is, I will call what's happening in LA right now, Operation Cover Fire. Because Trump knew, and there are those among him who are probably more Machiavellian even than he, that all you got to do is set something up like this and you know what the response will be. And then since everyone's wearing masks like a bunch of assholes, you can throw agents provocateurs in there and stir stuff up. And then everybody's like, Elon who? Hegseth who? Right?
Well, they were looking for an opportunity, I believe, to do this all along. Everything that he's doing against, any marginalized community, especially the black community, I believe he's hoping for an excuse to do exactly what he's doing, to federalize the National Guard and turn them on the people. So, and,
have a Kent State happen, basically.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, times 40. They don't want 4 dead; they want 40, 400, because it makes him look tough. So, but it's, of course, he's just the weakest, babyest, whiny titty baby to ever inflict itself on a nation. It's unbelievable. And I was looking at Twitter, and you have to see, I'm sure you might have seen it, all the propaganda that's on there. The whole city is apparently burnt to the ground, just like the BLM movements. Yeah,
just like Portland. That's why we had to separate you and Tara, the other Tara, because Portland is such a... It's a hollowed out crater. #RIP Portland. #RIP LA. Now, I have to say, as somebody who lived through the LA riots in the 90s, where I literally I was having dinner at a friend's house. I didn't even know these folks this well. Florence Riggs' house, as a matter of fact, Seth Riggs' ex-wife, who is this big vocal coach in Los Angeles. I didn't know how big a deal that was until I was there. And her daughter Ariel and a couple of people, and we're all over there having dinner, and the riots broke out, and nobody could get home because they shut down the freeways. So I spent 3 days there. Like, we stayed in the house because there was a big chance there was going to be this like herd of people coming over the hills, and setting fire to entire neighborhoods and that kind of stuff. And my car wouldn't have outrun them at the time. I'm just saying. So I remember that was everywhere. This is like 2 intersections downtown and across the 101. And it's, by comparison, relatively pitiful. The only thing that seems to be spreading is the looters that take advantage of this stuff that have, I would argue, nothing to do with the protests,
Yes.
nothing to do with even rioting attached to the protest. They're just taking advantage of unrest, as it were, which is a lovely euphemism. And yeah,
that's what happens. And then because there's so many factors at play. Of course, the economic insecurity, and that's what happens whenever that's what you're talking about. They're taking advantage of this situation to loot because they're completely disaffected, and I mean this all comes into play. But the whole I'm not. This is definitely one of those like false flags that they love to talk about. I mean, it's actually happening, but this is the opportunity to make him look like the tough guy, and
I gotta say, I don't see it working anytime soon.
No.
Yeah, and as desperate as they are for a quick fix in this circumstance, I think you're ending up with it being so ham-handed and so obvious, and quite frankly, so overwhelming towards such a small thing comparatively. I mean, we are not talking about. It's almost like he wants a reshot at the Columbia protests or something like. This is what I would have done, right, if I had been there. Yeah. So.
Well, I just have to ask though too, because you love history like I do.
Yep.
Has there ever been a situation that right wingers make better? That's all I'm asking. In history,
not in groups, and as individuals, there will be. I will cop to the occasion that a dude waiting for his Travis Bickle moment has happened to have a gun when somebody else picked up one and started killing people around, and he was like, "Merca, blang blang," and right. That's happened a couple of times. Here's what I would say is that there have been a lot of moments in this country, and I will concede that conservatives have done things to make the country better. Not recently, but have worked over time to try and push for a balanced budget or those kind of things, or have been pro law enforcement at a time when it was lax for a long time, and what you had was the abject victimization of people. Because in Los Angeles, one of the issues that we have is that you have and being, living in Los Angeles since 1988, and I love LA. I genuinely love the city. Is that you have two groups of people dealing with the police situation, especially since Rodney King and around that. You have the activist class who have really put their claws into it and turned it into a cause célèbre about police violence in general across the nation, weaved throughout, and the concept of systemic violence and all those kind of things. Things that always, you have to be what I would call a constant gardener for. It's not one thing you're going to wipe out in one fell swoop. That's why defund the police did not work and never would work, because of the primary reason is that most people in most communities are victimized by people who look just like them. Most crime is of the date rape variety, meaning that it is someone known in the community or known to you in the community, or is somebody who is in the same community you are in.
Yes.
Look, ask Appalachian whites if they're worried about Mexicans robbing their stores or coming in high on meth and stealing stuff. No, they're worried about other Appalachian whites. Like, that's how it always works. And when you defund the police or you scoop them out, what ends up happening is those people get more victimized, because the nicer neighborhoods are never going to lose their funding. Beverly Hills, you defund LA's police, the funding for Beverly Hills, West Hollywood, those are separate sheriff's departments, Santa Monica, all those areas, they go up when that happens. They do not go down. There is no evening this out, right? So when you do defund it, it's always the impoverished areas that do it. And then the people who would normally act as criminals in those areas have free reign to do whatever we want. And we saw that last night in relation to, quote unquote, the riots around this, which I would just call this looting and theft. They had like 5 dudes breaking in. There's like this Indian shop owner trying to keep his door shut while guys are trying to beat him up and steal his stuff. These are not financially disenfranchised people. They were walking out with crates of liquor that they were going to sell someplace else at an underground club. Yeah. So there is, our thing is, if we jump in with both feet, we are in the same situation. We're doing the same thing Trump is. And I think we have to seize the complexity of the situation and understand that human beings are come in all shapes and sizes amongst all races and groups. and that all of them want a stable life for their children, good schools, a solid hockey team, as Joe Friday would say. But
I just
right.
I just wanted to say that the defund the police was just a stupid slogan that the Republicans grabbed onto. Right. That's it.
Which should be a lesson for us.
No one defunded. Yeah. No one defunded anything.
Well, we had the three city councils, Minneapolis and a couple of others, that actively tried to do it. And then they put Portland did a version of it. They put the toothpaste back in the tube quietly behind the scenes. So they came out and went, we're defunding the police, essentially. We're shifting money from here to there. And they either never did it or tried to do it and failed massively. It's along the lines of Portland's decriminalization of all drugs or whatever. They have reversed course on that.
That's true.
Massively. So to us it's just a term, but they're the ones that blow it up into a national thing and give, I would argue, weight to people who aren't necessarily
the Democratic Party. They're not the ones holding on to this defund the police. A couple that's why the Democrats suck at messaging, and I've always said they should use the phrase fund community policing, not defund. Nobody wants to like you're saying, people want safe streets, safe communities, and it's they want to fund community policing. You don't want to take anything away. You want to make sure the communities are safe, and that's a better way to message that.
Agreed.
So,
right. Yeah. Also, somebody Kalatu in the chat is saying, don't defund the police, train them. And that's exactly right. But remember, what happened when they set up a training facility? I think it was in Georgia, was the one they called Cop City. Democracy Now! Did hours on this thing. That whole place was literally a facility to up the training of police officers in situations that escalate. Like that was the crazy part. That's what, if you're asking for training and then they set up a training facility and then you and then people were literally like surrounding the place. That's where you get the slacktivist class against the sort of hardliners who really have a different agenda, and that's so
true. Yeah.
I don't necessarily believe. I think there's like I said, we know that for example, Trump hired Paul Manafort to join his team, or Paul Manafort offered to work for free, right? That was the thing. Right. Well, what was Paul Manafort famous for before that? He was the one who suggested to Lukashenko, was it? Yeah, the president of Ukraine at the time, or Yanukovych. It was Yanukovych. He suggested Yanukovych, here's what you do. You put snipers in the towers. We'll put people in the crowd. They'll start shit. And then you will have an excuse to shoot. That's exactly what happened. The people that were murdered on Euromaidan in Ukraine, that was all set up by Paul Manafort. He suggested. His own daughters don't talk to him anymore. If you read their text messages, I mean, there's the way he treated their mother. He would hire guys off Craigslist to have sex with her after she was mentally incapacitated in a car accident. Oh my God! Just the most disgusting human being.
What they're always disgusting people. I didn't know about that. Oh my God.
I don't know why that story didn't become a bigger thing around his daughter. There was this lawsuit against him, and his daughter's text messages came out in this, and they literally don't talk to him for two reasons. One of them was like, we're taking blood money because our dad was behind the snipers in the towers that killed activists specifically in Euromaidan, right? That's Paul Manafort, who, I mean, you get what you pay for, but he worked for free for Trump, right? In that situation. Just hideous. And this guy, his wife was injured in a car accident. She was mentally incapacitated. And he would hire men off Craigslist to have sex with her and kind of have his own Diddy party at home. And the daughters found out about it and stopped talking to him, and tried to, get custody of their moms. They could get her out, but she was still aware enough that she could make decisions. So it was like all he had to do was, get her liquored up slightly or whatever, and she couldn't think or move at all. It was, it was just hideous, just a hideous human being, right?
Yeah, that's the word, hideous.
Yeah,
vile.
It's just
waste of human DNA. Just
and I would go, you have to understand, that's the kind of person Donald Trump hired.
Yes.
That guy, he was cool with that dude. There's no way he didn't know about that. So every time there's a riot or something pops up under Donald Trump, I'm immediately like, holy hell! Like this is who's whispering in his ear. He's still got the dude on speed dial.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Never a good person. You know, I mean, just the whole breakup thing that's going on is just unreal.
Well,
because
so let's
we'll
talk about that. Yeah, let's talk about it right now because apparently Trump is having a rough time. He fell on the stairs yesterday. I don't know if you did you see that yesterday?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I hope it didn't hurt too little.
Right. Well, I'll show you right here. For those that didn't see this,
I'm so happy to hear this because he's always talking about Biden and
Yeah, well, he does it. Yeah, he doesn't completely go down, but there's this moment, and he is just death gripping the rest of it. I think there was another angle of it where he's going up. That's the Biden one. There's another angle of it where you see him from behind do it, and he full on goes hand to stare. And when he gets to the top, he goes like this again, and he's like,
yes, fight.
Right, yeah. Just ham-handing it. By the way, I don't know, in response, Marco Rubio did the same thing. And Trump,
no, are you kidding me? Oh, no.
Yeah,
It's going to become a thing of them now walking upstairs and falling.
Yeah, happen to anybody, boss.
With a giant Kotex on their head, right?
Yeah. I was trying to...
full regalia.
The stairs tried to assassinate me. Right, yeah. So the fascinating aspect of like he's not doing well. Let's just say that, and that's the good part.
Yeah.
And the problem is should we be more worried? And this is I'm interested in your opinion on this. Is he more dangerous when he's trapped and failing, or when he thinks everything's going his way?
That's a tough one. But he's dangerous either way because he is being manipulated by everyone who is horrible that's around him as well. Because he doesn't want to work. That's the other thing. He wants the regalia. Yeah, he wants the trappings of the presidency. He wants to feel like a big man. He wants them to play Hail to the Chief when he walks in the room. He wants to be somebody that everybody has to consider.
Right.
And so, but he doesn't want to do the job. That's why he's always like, bring it to the states, give it to the states, because it makes him seem like he has some kind of ideology when he's just lazy. And that's
right. He can also blame them when it fails, because one of the things he does with his own people is he delegates it. And he delegates something impossible. And then when they can't get it done, it's not because it was impossible in the first place and it was a dumb idea. It's because they're incapable of doing it, or they were probably a Democrat all the time and only got him coffee, right?
Yes, they were the worst. They were horrible. They were
terrible.
Wearing thin.
They all get Trump derangement syndrome. I don't know what happens. Everybody goes crazy. As soon as they see the evidence against me up close, As soon as
they see me every day and they work with me and they see how unfit I am.
Yeah, it's weird. Suddenly everyone turns on me. Now, again, there's so many things to cover. There's just so much to cover. What would you say is your story celeb that drives you crazy that has been coming? Because I'll give you mine.
Wow, that's a lot.
Mine is this kind of inability, and it obviously came crashing together last week of like the right-wing media to understand that when they're talking about the Epstein files, they have to be talking about Trump because they were they're just, they were running buddies. He was his wingman they were friends for 25 years, right? So I like watching those people try to not make that connection. Like they're playing Operation in their head with like, how do I get the Epstein bone out of this thing without touching the sides that electrocute me and on the Trump doll, right? So right, that's the
Donald Trump.
Like, hold on, let's see if we can find the. I think I have the footage of him falling up the stairs.
Please.
So this has become the meme on it. There he is going down, which very similar to the Biden shot. I gotta say, and if I guess this is why you don't get your stairs assembled in China, because they will intentionally make the 8th step thinner than the rest, and you think right as you're getting a groove on.
I hope so. I don't doubt it. Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that hard, right? So, anyways, I'll find the actual footage, but you get my point about that particular issue to me is one of them that is just like
The
overwhelming.
Epstein stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like to
Well,
me.
because but to me that I agree, but it's disgusting. It's explosive. The stuff that we know because of Discovery. Wait, I'm all right. I have
Here you
to
go.
move the camera.
Ben had it up
Oh,
on their channel. So this is him. This is him. Watch. That's it. Just enough.
Nice.
Just enough to
Nice.
make him shaky the rest of the trip.
Lovely.
And
Yeah.
he'll be talking about that for a week. Like he can't even enjoy the riot he started because
Yeah.
And people are saying leg
Who's he gonna
weakness.
blame?
It's
Yeah,
his
who's
right
he gonna
leg.
blame?
It's his right leg famously that he has to like swing around, when he walks, and people were
He's a
concerned
mess.
about that. But his left leg's, on the fail now too, and that's stroke territory. That's all kinds of stuff. But he's also just kind of he's a mess. Like he's just not coordinated. Yeah.
I'm
So
surprised
anyway,
he's lasted as long with all of his horrible habits.
well, we'll
His,
see. We'll see what we
well,
shall
his
see.
mother lived. His mother lived to 99, which kind of gives me
Right, but his mother
me
didn't
screaming.
live on like Diet Coke and fish sandwiches from McDonald's and didn't believe in
Probably
exercise. And she looked like one of these like old women who ate like four
Yes,
sardines
like
and a cup of yogurt a day, and you know what I mean.
Yes.
And like I'm gonna live
Very
forever
true.
just to spite all you ratty kids, right?
Yes, just because she hated her son, she didn't trust him. That's for sure. She didn't
Yeah,
like him.
yeah.
She sent him away.
Yeah.
He's damaged. But whatever. He's a sociopath. But as far
Right.
as you're talking about what's my
Yeah, your
bugaboo,
cause celeb. Yeah.
Yes. Well, honestly, it is the messaging in the Democratic Party. I think that
Okay.
we're on the right side of history. We're on the right side of decency. I always, end my show like that, and we should not be afraid to talk about it. And it feels to me that the Democrats are more interested, not maybe now, but they seem when Biden was in office, more interested in rehabbing the Republican brand than the Republicans themselves. Always touting how much, Republicans helped, even when it was just like a couple of Republicans would cross over, or this is bipartisan, we're bipartisan. What do you care? You think it's a one-way street. It never goes the other way. They treat the Democrats like, it's tantamount to treason to compromise.
I agree, but I don't think in those situations they're actually talking to Republicans. I think they're talking to independents.
No,
and there's
right.
an increasingly large group of people, people call themselves independents who always vote Republican except in extraordinary circumstances, who is how Biden won in 2020, quite frankly. And they that's the thing. You got to reassure those people that this will be normal, that this will be, we're going to get back to normal. And sometimes that's enough. This time it wasn't. And and part of my, my real problem right now, especially with the riots that are happening in Los Angeles, or even the people who are marching and that kind of stuff, is that a big bunch of these motherfuckers didn't vote.
Yes.
They did not vote.
That's the truth. And of course we remember from the BLM movement, there were notable false flags on the right wing. Because the Umbrella Man was
right.
It came out. What is? I'm looking it up. He was an undercover agent. They accused him of, but it ended up he was a member of a white supremacist group.
Yeah, it was like one of the Proud Boys or what have you. But
the Boogaloo Boys.
Boogaloo Boys.
They shot into police stations screaming justice for George Floyd. And then this guy was arrested, and ended up he was like an agent, a right-wing provocateur. And that's why you're 100% correct. There is no doubt in my mind there are these groups, especially the January 6th traitors that are unleashed. They're out there. They're causing problems. They're the ones instigating the violence, I would believe, in many of the circumstances. Definitely. No doubt.
So,
Absolutely.
and if you get involved in that kind of stuff, and it's why, like, Trump is doing this thing, like, no masks. And I'm like, you know what? It seems like to me, he's like, wear the masks, start the shit, and then take off your masks and go away, and I'll arrest everybody else who shows up with masks. It's too easy to fall into that. And I've said for a long time, look, I know we have to worry about them tracking people's faces and all that kind of stuff, and everybody worries about that. But the reality is, that's what it takes in a serious situation. You have to stand up for who you believe in, and it is not a protest if you don't know who's protesting. If I don't know you're honest about it, and I don't know you're really saying what you're really saying, it's just another version of online. These people are tweet protesting, because when you could show up with a mask on and hide your identity,
100%.
I can't tell if you're there because you really care, or you're just wearing the banners so you can get close enough to start some shit so other people get shot. And that's the concern. And it has to matter. Otherwise, nobody will take this stuff seriously. And then you've also got, like, they had this in Portland. They had this in Seattle, certainly, is you had these, like, have protest will travel crowds that will black block and show up just to throw shit at the man. But they don't actually care about women's rights or minority rights. This is like upper middle class white kids with no black friends. It's gross. And because they're like face cover, like they get, like, I guess all the street cred amongst their small social circle, but none of the value as actual protesters.
Mm-hmm.
And
they're just anarchists. They're not in the Democratic Party. They're not, like you're saying, they're not showing up to vote. They're just showing up to break shit because they're pissed off at, the whole system and whatever,
exactly.
burn it down.
And the which is I guess everybody has a right to do that, but I would like to actually, because we actually do have a system, because we actually do have the ability to vote in this country, when you bypass that and you don't vote and then you show up to start shit, basically what you're saying is democracy has failed. Let's go back to some sort of monarchical or oligarchical or authoritarian thing, just as long as I'm in charge. And then again, how are you different from Trump in that argument, right? And that's why there's a lot of strange bedfellows about those guys. That's why there's a lot of crossover in what would be the far left and the far right. That's why there's a lot of overlap. And you got, like, Hassan Abi, Cenk's nephew, effectively saying, like, terrorism is a good method for, solving, your geopolitical issues, and babies can be targets, like, because there are baby settlers and shit like that. Like, and at a certain point, you're like, you sound like
what
Trump.
The Nazis said. I mean, you sound like the Nazis. That's exactly what they said. Their babies will grow up, and then they would kill the mother and say, well, the baby can't grow up without a mom. Let's kill the baby too. So they were just being compassionate.
Burkina Faso, like, Chad, like the Democratic Republic of Congo, where they would cut the breasts off, lactating mothers so that their child would die too, and it was a warning and to scare the, like, hideous stuff. But there are some people on, the Stephen Millers of the world and the Hassan Abis of the world who shrug that stuff off with this sociopathic, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs bullshit, right? And I'm like, the rest of the people in the country, the majority of the people in the country are trying to find a way to negotiate, a normal life amongst a lot of different people with a lot of different varying political or philosophical beliefs. That's what democracy is for.
But that's why Trump, to some of these people, seemed reasonable, and those who aren't even paying attention, they see the propaganda. They I people on my show know I went to my doctor, for my checkup before Trump was elected, but he wasn't in office yet. And then during the checkup, he's like, "How you feeling? Are you depressed? Whatever." They go through those questions. He said, "Well, I'm not. I'm a little depressed about. I'm not looking forward to January. Whatever when he swears in January 20th." And he goes, "Well, you didn't vote for Trump?" This is my doctor, and I'm like, no, did you? Yeah, and he's like, well, yeah, it's all the crime here in the city, and I'm like, well, okay.
So here's
the crime rate was down in New York. It was down. Okay?
Right. So. But there are a couple of things I've been dealing with those two things and it's those people that are the target of, my sort of speculation and philosophy around these things, is that we allowed we gave that ground to the right.
Yeah.
We, instead of being
100%.
about like security and throwing rapists and murderers and thieves in jail, which you should do, and you shouldn't have any like qualms about doing that. You can have sympathy for how they got there, but that affects how you raise children. It doesn't talk about that person. You can go, wow, well, Ted Bundy would have been a different guy if his parents had raised him. Well, are you going to put people in everybody's home to make sure they're raising their kid in a way they won't become a serial killer? No, because that's impossible. So then shut the fuck up and treat the problem that's in front of you, and then make sure you have a system, I don't know, in high schools and middle schools and stuff where you're keeping an eye on kids that might be a problem and have counselors. Well, guess what? We
That's
did.
why you have a good infrastructure. Yeah.
That's right.
And
That's
it's
what Democrats
democracy.
did, right? So, so the problem is we ceded that ground using things like, yeah, exactly. And they seized upon it in the broadest terms. And we allowed them to do it. And so the people like your doctor has, feel, like the Democrats are not going to do anything about crime. That should just be an absurdity. Like, yeah, they really.
It's 100%. That's why that's why I believe we have two problems, basically, fundamentally. One is money in politics, and the other is propaganda. We have to get the message back. And I know because of the Telecommunication Act, the consolidation of the media, and that was Bill Clinton signed that, whatever, and they knew what was going to happen. So now we have Rupert Murdoch owning the Post, the Fox News, like just flooding everywhere with propaganda, and it is propaganda. That's why the Democrats have to say things like that Fox News makes its viewers less informed than people who watch no news at all. It's not a news channel. It has the lowest budget for news gathering of all news channels because it is a performance of news. It's not actual news.
I've never seen a direct route from the White House to actual pundits in my life. For all they claim about MSNBC being MSDNC and all that horse shit, which is not even anywhere near true. No. That they wish, but. When it comes, especially around like Newsmax and all these, and even Charlie Kirk and others, when this Elon Musk thing started breaking out, they were all like, I haven't heard from the White House how they want me to spin this. They were literally openly saying it. Like, I don't know quite what
and it's no, not even any shame about it either.
Right.
It's clear. Trump was talking about in the last, well, I'm sure maybe he still does it, how he would end his day on the phone with Hannity every night, where they would, well, you hang up. No, you hang up with Hannity. Right. I mean, the corruption is right out in the open, but that's why the Democrats have to, they have to disparage this. They have to, I know we're so divided in this country in so many ways, and that's really one of them, because we have half the country just basically getting propaganda from Rupert Murdoch's, poison pustule. That's it. And that's what they think is real. And the Democrats, to me, are, they really have to reclaim patriotism. Another thing that drives me insane, and I'd love to get your opinion on it, is how they never point out, or what it just drives me mad, how they say Democrat Party.
Yeah.
They'll say it, Trump will say it. They'll say it in the State of the Union. They'll talk about it in committee.
Because Democratic
Party.
Because Democratic sounds like democracy, and they have to go. Yeah.
Right, but they don't stop this. And what they need to do is say, well, there they go again. You see, they don't have anything to offer the American people but juvenile, petty taunts. But the fact that they just sit there, it looks like to me like a battered spouse, frankly. How many times does somebody have to call you outside of your name before you look like a beaten dog?
Yeah,
for Christ's sakes.
Right.
It's like they would not tolerate it if we started calling them the Republican Party.
Right, yeah. Well, we do, but it doesn't quite land as much because they don't have the language police on their side. They're as long as you use the phrases, you're allowed in, but you don't have to use the phrases to be allowed in. And if you, exactly. Whereas we did a big language police thing for the last decade, and it was, I would argue, artificially boosted by China and Russia, certainly, and the Republicans, and especially Trump and his crowd, took great advantage of it. Whereas if you don't use the exact right word around a myriad of issues, and probably trans is the most obvious one, you have literal people who, like Buck Angel, who views himself as a transsexual, calling himself that, knowing that his sex hasn't changed, but that his gender hasn't, blah, blah, blah. But that's what he calls himself. He was born a biological woman, has transitioned into a man. If you don't know who he is. But he uses the phrase transsexual, but the trans community would attack him for not being on the right side of issues and whatever. So there's disagreement and complexity even in that issue. But it's when we pretend there isn't, and that there are certain passwords and you can just walk down the hallway by saying the one right word. It's like if you wear a Palestinian a keffah like around your face while you're rioting in LA over immigration, you could get to the front of the line of some of those crowds because they recognize the scarf. That doesn't mean you believe it. It's just that will get you through. And and that's what the complaint was on Jan 6 from the right. They definitely were like, there were FBI guys in here. It was all like the whole thing was a false flag, after the fact, because it failed. But on our side, the idea is we're so open to everybody. We're so, and I think that's a good thing, that we have the burden of diversity, and we have to claim that. You gotta, if you're going to claim diversity, you can't police language, because you're going to have people who English isn't their first language. You're going to have a lot of Latinos and Latinas who hate Latinx, for example, that bucked against that. You could chart 2-3% of the shift in the Latino and Latina vote in the United States because of the Latinx conversation.
Right.
Because
that's true.
You have white liberals in the United States trying to degender a gendered language. And culturally, there were enough of them that were mad, right, that did that. But we were the ones who enforced that, right? And it could be like, we could just be open to go, okay, this person says Latinx, so they prefer to, kind of blend it all together, so they're speaking for everybody, and we're cool with that. But if you say Latino or Latino, nobody's jumping on you with both feet. And if we were more in that zone, we wouldn't have had, and this is not just a singular issue, I'm speaking broadly across our language in this regard.
Yeah.
And that we would have scooped a lot more people in. And it was what turned them. It's very much like your doctor and the idea of being tough on crime. The Republicans have used this forever, right?
Exactly. And the neighborhood's it's not bad. That's what I'm saying. I mean, the doctor's neighborhood where the office is fine. It's not crime ridden and,
Right. Well, that's the other thing, too. It's like LA right now.
He's from, I don't know where, but he's from a Latin country.
Okay, so that's a great point too. Okay, and by the way, Tara Devlin has a show with our dear friend Tara Devlin, who will be with us in just a few minutes. And you have your own Substack as well on your own that you run?
Yes.
Called?
Well, no, it's on the Political Voices network. Right. So if you subscribe to them, and I guess my Substack is through them. I don't know. I don't really have my own.
All right, sure.
I post through Political Voices. I guess I should have my own too.
I think it's wise. I think you should have.
Yes.
Yeah. That's good. And then and also tell us the other, like, you're on Blue Sky as Tara Devlin or
as Tara Buster, and and I don't know. I'm very bad at all of the social media.
I'm trying to make you better. I'm trying to make you better.
I really I have my YouTube on youtube.com/cfachannel/Tara Buster. And I'm still on Twitter, but I just go there to monitor the Nazis. Right. And
somebody was asking what came first, transvestite or transsexual. Definitely transvestite, because people didn't even have the concept of someone being transsexual until, legitimately until the medicalization of society, in the early, I would say, post-industrial age. Before that, it was just transvestism the world over. Even when you're talking about mixed genders, or in Thailand, like ladyboys, there's no question that they're biologically male. That's not the point, right? They dress this way for a reason. That's a cultural thing, and it's a great conversation to have. I'm willing to have it with anybody who wants to talk about it at some point. But where was I? Oh, yes. So when we're talking about complex issues, the tendency has been to, we got to be all complex, and the Republicans don't, so they can just do these these bumper stickers, and we need to do bumper stickers too. And I would argue that our big bumper sticker is these aren't, simple solutions from the right. They're simpleton solutions. You need to start talking about these things like, you know what? We're not afraid of big bills because A, we can read, and B, there are 340 million people in this country. You don't think these laws should be complex? You know who wants a very small bill on 2 pages? Somebody who's got a good lawyer who can find loopholes. The less money they have to pay their lawyer to look for a loophole, the better. So make these things quick and dirty bills, because a short bill, there's a reason why there's all these sub-clauses and attachments and paragraph B and paragraph C. They didn't have to be there until some motherfucker came in and broke the law. And they're like, oh, great, now we have to...
Well, they're not reading them anyway, but that's the... Right. They don't, because they're a cult. They don't need to read them. They'll just say, well, shall I vote for this dear leader? Yes, do it. And they do
I agree, but our response, and I think those folks can still conceptualize that there are cheaters out there, rich people with good lawyers who can get around this stuff. And you can go, look, these bills are that long, not because they're full of pork or something like that. It's because we have to make sure that when we pay for something in a district, they can't steal it. And it takes a lot of language to make sure they can't find 9 different ways to Sunday because they're trying all the time. That's why. That's why a bill is big and thick and full of words, because we're in the same way. Hey, we started with thou shalt not kill. And it seems kind of self-evident until you do it in self-defense. And then the state's going to assassinate both of you. And you're like, wait, you're going to kill me because I killed him because he was going to kill me? What the fuck is this? Right? So we got, what do we have in this country? We have first degree, second degree, depraved indifference, manslaughter. Oh, right. We've got, and then we have first, second, and third degree. Right, in each of those subcategories with you were intoxicated at the time, so that'll affect sentencing. Did
you plan it out, or was it a spur of the moment?
And so we've recognized over time the complexity, even in something as awful as person killing another person. Right, that's a terrible event in the world. I've always said the best day of a gun's life is the worst day of yours. The only thing it's for is the worst day of your life. That's all a gun is ever for. It's not a toy. I think they should all be pink, for one. I think we would solve a lot of problems if every gun sold in the United States to a civilian had to be bright pink. You would cut all these macho dickheads walking around with a giant pink gun in front of them. It'd be hilarious. It's a theory that I have. But the point is that I think we can seize the complexity of it and point out that this is what happens when you have simpletons running the government. This is complex. This 340 million. Well, you all want your freedoms. Freedom has to be finely sliced to make sure that people don't take advantage of it.
Very true. But here's the other thing that the Democrats need to message. When they talk about the red states, all they have to do is add the qualifier poorly run red state in front of it. Poorly run. All of these red states are at the bottom of every positive measure. The poorest rural areas are solidly Republicans. The blue states make up 71% of the GDP of America, and the red states produce 29%. No one goes.
And there's way more of them.
Exactly, and no one is dreaming in any other country. They're not dreaming of seeing the moon over the meth lab in in Tennessee. They want to go to New York. They want to go to California.
That's right.
These are, we are, have the greatest.
So, all right. So how do we, so Tarek, let me hear it, because I this has been a thing of mine for a while. People know this. What's the answer in that regard? How do we get Democrats to what does that messaging look like? And what? Well,
because this is what I've been screaming about for 10 years online and all. It is about reclaiming patriotism, and that you have to be in anything. You have to, if someone is struggling and they don't see the light, you cannot mince words with them. You just got to tell them the truth, and before the truth sets them free, of course, it will piss them off, but it will at least be. It is the truth. We have nothing to hide there. Saying a poorly run red state is the fact. The only thing that they give these people is hate. They divide them, and in fact, they make them poorer in that regard too.
Right.
They make them morally, spiritually poorer, and ethically poorer. So we have to, as far as what do, we have to get the Democrats and us, and this is why what we're doing, I believe, is really one of the most important parts of this whole
Right.
the situation that we're in, because we have to reclaim patriotism, because
Yeah.
the Republicans love the symbols of patriotism, but the substance is way over their heads. And this is what I've been screaming about Democrats. I served in the National Guard myself, and when I see those National Guard soldiers out there, I feel bad for them, because a lot of them are there for economics. Right. They're not there. They're like, and people are screaming at them. They don't want to be there either. I'm sure
Right.
a lot of them are not on their side. They get called, they get activated, they got to go, And but the Democrats have got to start reclaiming this patriot, because in saying that, in fact, like universal health care, we don't leave anyone behind. That's a message that people can resonate with. Like when I was in the Guard, we used to drill about leaving no one behind. So we don't leave anybody behind on the battlefield. We don't leave them behind in sickness, in education. We don't leave anyone behind in this country. That is a message that can resonate, I believe, with conservatives. And we were talking the last time when you came on the Tara show with myself and Tara Dublin, that we were talking about how we reach conservatives. And we do that by, saying things like about patriotism, that they can understand.
Brad in our chat says it's hard for smart people to speak with stupid people without sounding condescending. How you should understand that. Well, here's the thing. I grew up in Kentucky, so the joke used to be that I got kicked out of Kentucky for reading too much. Every state has a joke, and Kentucky's state joke is I have a friend who was arrested for smuggling books into Kentucky, but he got off on a technicality because no one could prove they were books. That was the single joke I heard the most about my home state when I was growing up there as a kid. And I was like...
And they were telling it
around
about
themselves.
Each other.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And by the way, let's be clear. In Frankfort, Lexington, and Louisville, which are the smart parts of the state, and we're not talking about Pikeville wouldn't think that was funny. Right. And that's why you have somebody like Mitch McConnell, and you have a lot of like Arabian money in Kentucky for all the horse farms and that kind of stuff, when these people, especially post 9/11, were as anti-Muslim as you could find. So here's the thing. I agree with you that you cannot talk to someone who is like dug in like a Alabama tick, hanging on to this idea when you're talking to a Republican or somebody from a red state. I don't think that's why Democrats are afraid to say it. I think they're afraid of criticism from their left flank, that they sound classist in that situation, or that they're making...
Yeah, I never thought
and
about that.
They're more afraid. They're not afraid of shitting on a Republican to his face. They're worried about the sort of like the people who on their left who don't even want an economic system to start with. They're either communists or socialists or whatever. They view themselves as such, even if they're not. Yelling at them, or minority groups going, oh, so if people are poor, that makes them shitty or whatever. You're like, okay, asshole. So my part of town requires more taxes than your part of town. So is that what you think about me? Like, that's what comes up at these town meetings, and it's what happens at these DNC meetings, and it's what happens at these, like city council meetings. Oh my God, like the Chicago. You wanna dive down a wormhole. Go watch like the tapes of like Chicago city council stuff, especially around the immigrant issue, where you have black people showing up talking about the immigrants and their issues, especially as Texas was sending people up there specifically taking money. Now, they're like, we've spent $1.6 billion on blah, 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 and we don't have money for this and this. Okay. Chicago has like $1 trillion economy, multi-trillion dollar economy. It's like, it'd be the 20th biggest economy on earth if it was a country. So even that is a drop in the bucket to what it's doing. But that fixation drove a bunch of people to show up at these things and eat them alive. And so the city council started changing what they were doing, right? And Roy in our chat saying, fuck them, those blocks don't vote. I completely agree, but they're loud as shit online.
Right.
And they message to the people who do.
Yeah. The Democrats should not give a shit then. This is the thing. They should just barrel on. The truth is the truth. That's why people like Donald Trump. they think he's telling the truth, which is the biggest irony of all, because he is the biggest pathological liar, and people think he's a truth teller because he calls people fat pigs and whatnot. Right? And but it's the same thing here. You just tell the truth, and because people want to vote for a fighter, and that's what the Democrats don't seem to get in a lot of ways. They don't seem. You've got to have the courage of your convictions. That's why people are attracted to Bernie, because he is. He's clear. He's been clear for however many years, 40 years. And he doesn't back down because he's got the truth on his side. And that's the Democrats, by being very mealy mouth about that, it seems like they're cowardly and they get this.
It's a great example, because I have a languaging issue. And our dear friend Tara Dublin, your partner in anti-criminality, what I don't know call it, is going to be joining us in about another 8 minutes. And I want to remind everybody to Tara Dublin is not only the co-host of what I would call TNT, what dynamite. Yeah, on the Progressive Voices Network, but also we'll eventually have our own Substack if I have anything to say. I will.
I just have to activate it. I signed up through Political Voices, and then I know.
I understand.
That's why I'm glad that Tara Dublin is helping me, because she's good at that stuff too.
And I got distracted by where was I? Damn it. I had the thought and I lost it.
We were talking about the Democrats. So the language
of this, and the kid, there she is, waiting in the wings. We'll bring her in just one moment. I think she just wants to see you in here. I think actually, what's funny is, let me see if I can add. Her mic's not on yet, but when I add her on the right, I think I can bring you both in at the same time for a moment.
That'd be nice.
That'd be a nice crossover. We don't hear you yet. Yep. You don't hear her, do you? Tara, Devlin? Nope.
I don't see her, no, or hear her.
Okay, you should, oops, she hung up and she's coming back. So, Bernie, that was where I was going. So, check, is she there? Do you hear?
Check two, toast.
There she is. I hear her. So I'll bring her in. We'll do a transfer over, and I'll get Tara. Hold on. Two guests. There we go. Let me bring you both in here. I've got to move her in and put her. Yes, I do. Add her right. Boink. There we go. Yeah. Now I've got to shuffle you around a little bit. Sorry.
I can move myself.
No. I'm doing it on the fly. We're good.
It's a Hal sandwich.
It is.
We made a house sandwich.
Everybody does.
With
it's a good time.
Bread.
Yes, that's right. So I'll stretch this out.
Tara show. That's an extreme close-up.
There we go. It's all right. She always complains about that. Tara's she's vain that way. It's okay. So all right. So
if I was vain, I'd want you closer.
Here's okay. So this is the languaging thing, and I would love to hear your take on this, because I have heard for a long time about the rights of every American. Now, there are natural rights, and then there are what are effectively societal rights, rights that are given to you by your government. You establish this group, you go, hey, I pay taxes, therefore I have the right to expect that you have a military that can fight off the bad guys, and you have you make sure my water is clean because I don't need to do that. That's what I pay taxes for, right? That's not a natural right. A natural right is to not be molested in your own person, and being attacked and murdered by someone. That is what's considered a natural right. You have the right to fight back if that does happen. You have the right to, if there's water nearby and you're dying of thirst, you can take some of it to keep yourself alive, and then you can pay for it later, by washing dishes, whatever it is. But there are natural rights, and then there are these governmental societal rights that we establish. And when people talk about stuff being a right, housing being a right, healthcare being a right, the problem is they don't establish which one of those they are. Now, housing and healthcare are not natural rights. They never could be. No one has the right to a house. No one would. The rest of if you're walking down a road in the 1400s by yourself, you can't just walk up and go, okay, there's enough people here to build a house.
Right.
You guys have to build me a house. Like, that doesn't exist, right? You could cover yourself with a blanket and you can shelter yourself, but you don't have a right to shelter. Okay, so that's not a natural right. It is a societal right. If we so choose, then it can exist. Then you can have that right. Okay, yep. So I have argued for a long time that is more akin to a responsibility, that we as a society have a responsibility to, on the one hand, take good enough care of ourselves to not be a burden unnecessarily on the system. That if there are limited resources, only so many doctors, there's only so much medicine, there's only so much, like food and clean water in the world or whatever. You have to be conservative about those resources, right? Seizing patriotism is one thing, but seizing the word conservative could be a thing in this regard. But the point is that I have a responsibility to not take up a hospital bed, unless something awful happens, as best I can. Because I know those resources are limited. And then I believe we have a responsibility to take care of people who cannot afford to take care of themselves. So a national healthcare system would not just involve us providing healthcare to people who are hit with cancer or something like that, but it would also be stay fit, eat right, take care of yourself, make sure you don't get sick, so that the price of everything doesn't go up because we're just overburdening the system, which is what happens with the NHS and creates wait times and all that stuff. So responsibility in a positive sense, a proactive responsibility, taking that word as opposed to a right, which sounds like you expected.
That's good. Right.
Thoughts on that from both of the lovely terrorists.
Yeah, you're always. I mean, that's 100%. You're always like. That's why I love you. You're always
I'm not
bringing
smart enough for this.
different perspective. But yeah, it's because I always say that Republicans want all the benefits of society, but none of the responsibilities that we have to each other, and that is 100% right there. You just.
But that's what they say about. That's what they say about the left. You want more free stuff from the government, and where do they get that from? Right. We pay taxes for it. You should be, you should be able to expect it.
You should end the shining city on a hill, the greatest country on earth. Don't we have an obligation? That's why it's so embarrassing. When one time I was in Manhattan on the subway, and there were people from, I don't know, Sweden. I couldn't tell exactly where they were from, and there were a bunch of homeless people on all of the seats. And it felt like embarrassing to me because I was saying to myself, I'm sure if I went to, their country, I wouldn't encounter the same kind of situation. It's just really a disgrace to us as a society to let that happen. But, because there's many factors involved. We have cut all of the, the funding for things where people can get help. And it's really not, handouts. It's also, like you're saying, the responsibility that we have to each other. And, there's enough for everyone's need, not for everyone's greed, as Gandhi said. And, I always wonder, too, though, with FDR's, what the Democrats should do, I'm wondering what you think about it, if they should pick up FDR's second Bill of Rights as, kind of like a mantle to run with, which would kind of, if he lived, we would be living under the second Bill of Rights right now, which includes the right of a home, the right to a job, the right for food, health, housing, and we'd be living in a different country. But anyway, maybe that's a conversation for another time.
Right. For those of you who don't know, the second Bill of Rights is more like the economic Bill of Rights was the way they thought of it. The problem was, and the reason it got shot down, was at the height of rolling communism, it was seen as a road to socialism. And socialism, at that time, Stalin, Lenin, they had always talked about, even Marx talked about the road to communism is through socialism. You start with socialism, and then you get it. You build to that. And Marx had even given up a point where you let capitalism roll until they eliminate work almost entirely, and then you just take their shit, which is the seizure of businesses and properties. The irony is the only person that's been talking about that kind of shit was Trump lately, in taking away newspapers.
Elon Musk.
Seizing Elon Musk. SpaceX. It's the most commie fucking thing we've heard ever in this country.
That's what I'm talking about, because Republicans want.
That's right.
When Trump was on the first maladministration, when he was campaigning for that, against Hillary Clinton. He sounded like Bernie, with racism. He said, we're all going to get health care. It's going to be the easiest deal ever. You won't have to pay for it. It's the easiest deal. He's talking about what we're talking about, universal health care. Everything is, and I also believe that, if anything, we need universal health care in this country. That's another thing that I hope I will live to see the day, because it also it is another way of saying that we don't leave anyone behind, that we are because like we should care for each other. That's patriotism.
I agree. So I'll show you where you'll see a pushback on that, and that's why I think seizing the phrase responsibility about this, that we have a responsibility to take care of people who've been sideswiped by life, as opposed to and take care of ourselves so that we don't burden the system. So because it will be expensive. If everybody just used it like a spa, that's what bankrupts insurance all the time. Because again, you do have limited resources. There aren't unlimited doctors. If there were, they would suck.
Right.
If you had when we had unlimited doctors, it just meant you went to the creek, found some leeches, threw them on your neck, and called it a day. That's when we had unlimited doctors, right? But if you have a limited resource, you have a responsibility to make sure that resource goes to the people that want it. That's where they came up with death panels and shit like that, right?
God,
but I feel like if we go, we're going to take responsibility for ourselves. We're going to make sure that America is fit and healthy, has good food, and all that. It's the most, it's the richest country in the world, so you got to take care of yourself. But we need to take care of those who can't take care of themselves in the Judeo-Christian, system. You can use those kind of words around this. So now I've got one Tara over here. This is Tara Devlin, and then Tara Dublin sitting right over here. And hi. And
I have an opinion.
Sorry,
just so you know, I have an
opinion.
I have an opinion. I also have an opinion.
Go ahead, Dublin.
Hi.
No, it's good. Yeah.
Hi.
So
Hi.
we'll trade off. But you guys have a show tomorrow.
We do.
And you where you talk to each other. So I'm going to separate you and play like a version of the Newlywed Game. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, guys.
I would also, while we have all the sparklers gathered in one place, we have the Tara Show tomorrow and Thursday, 2 p.m. on the East Coast and 11 a.m. on the West Coast. And on this Thursday, we will be joined by the wonderful Malcolm Nance. Malcolm will be joining us live from Philadelphia, where he's going to be prepping for the No Kings March, as we're all going to be doing on Saturday. And so having Malcolm, you were our first ever guest on the Tara Show, and we were like, who can follow Hal? Who's going to follow Hal? Like that's I mean, if you're going to start with Hal Sparks, where do you go? Where do you go? What happened? What happened?
Baby.
What happened?
He's got
what happened?
He scratched himself. He's got very bad allergies, so
I feel like I thought you sent him to cheerleader camp and he became overzealous.
Kill the bill. I'm just kidding. Sorry, go ahead, Tara.
Tuesday, Thursday, right?
Devlin,
yes.
Devlin and I have often tackled this topic, where I have often said, Democrats deliver everything Republicans remove, and we are not supposed to be taking anything away from the citizens of the United States of America, and that's why we pay taxes, and our taxes go to taking care of each other and the roads and our education and all of the things that make America function on the daily. And we're supposed to use that tax money to help the needy, not enrich the greedy. That's what they're for. And unfortunately, that's where the checks and imbalances comes from, because they're taking everything and giving nothing. That's what Republicans do.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why
it's so painfully obvious that, it's ridiculous that you even have to verbalize it at this point. They are making it as blatant as possible, that where their loyalty is, what they care about, and who they don't care about. Right. They are making it very plain, and that's why we're going to be in the streets on Saturday.
Yeah.
And they're dividing people. I mean, that's the way it is. They can only do this if they divide everyone along as Henry Wallace said, every fissure of disunity, every distinction without a difference. So, we are.
And again,
all right.
They do it with us all the time. They walk anytime there's a fissure, they walk up with a crowbar, stick it in there, and start wiggling it back and forth. We owe them the same. Yeah. And I think that applies both on this Epstein issue, both on the Elon Musk stuff that he really cares about. Because again, Donald Trump has no shame, but he can be embarrassed. And on that note, Tara Devlin on Political Voices. Thank you for joining me. We'll do it again sometime.
Devlin.
I think it's great. You guys can chat about me behind my back.
No, we don't do that. But if we do, we say nice things. We always say, what are we going to say? What are we going to say, Hal? That we wish you were on with us all the time? What are we going to say?
Probably, yeah.
That you're amazing.
Yeah.
What can we say?
It's getting better. Okay, you're turning me into Jeff Goldblum. Okay, so all right, here we go. All right, now I'm gonna try and transfer over. Right. There we go, and I'll let's see, add solo her, and then bye. There she goes, and then let me go to here. And it should come in. Oh, okay. Now I just got to move you over, and I'll fix that again because that's always what happens. Yeah. Oh wait, maybe it's in this thing.
I put my glasses on because Devlin had hers on, and I thought it would make a nice balance. Also, feeling a little makes me feel wicked smart.
Absolutely, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it.
I got shit to say.
Yeah, I know that. So hi.
Hi.
Well, I should expect so much. There you go.
What's the haps? There it is. Okay, I'll take that.
Yeah.
That's cool. That works. That's
okay.
fine.
I got you.
Right.
I got you.
I haven't seen you since we were handed the dual gifts of Elon telling the whole world about the Epstein files and rigging.
Oh yes.
And he's been trying to chat about that.
He's been, I guess, trying to walk it back in the last little bit. But you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube, kids.
Not with screenshots being forever and whatnot.
That's right.
And the thing is, first of all, and Devlin and I went live like seconds after I saw that stuff on Thursday. So it was just gleeful.
Me too.
We were just I got a little drunk on the Schadenfreude because it was so delicious that I just couldn't keep from drinking it and eating it and injecting it into my veins because
absolutely.
I always knew this breakup was coming. It's like when you see a couple that's just too sexy for each other and you're like, no, they're going to flame out. That's not going to work.
That's not the analogy I would use, but I understand you.
I'm just saying when two people are too much alike, eventually, whatever it was that attracted each other to each other, they're like, oh no, that's too much like me. Bye, go away. And they get grossed out by it. And that's what's happening. That's what happened. And Elon started it with the bill. He didn't like the bill because it was going to hurt him financially. And that's what we've talked about.
Go ahead. I was saying
we talked about it before, like what's it going to take, right? Until it hits them personally. Sorry, and so that's what happened. And the fact that he was so specific with the numbers on the tweet about him helping Trump win the election.
Yeah.
Like if he didn't use money numbers, he used results numbers. He said what the Senate would look like. It would be 51-49. That seems pretty dialed in. He didn't say it's because I gave Trump $214 billion and 47 cents. It wasn't that. It was about that. And then and then there's the Epstein files tweet, which you and I have talked about so much that we should just have a whole show called Tara and Hal talk about the Epstein files.
Right.
And how if there was nothing bad in it about Trump, they would have been released forever ago already to clear his name. And people who are innocent and transparent and can prove their innocence, do it immediately. That's what the court system's for. If you're innocent, you have no problem showing up to prove that you're innocent. But if you're guilty as fuck, then you declare war on Los Angeles to distract everybody from telling everybody that you're guilty as fuck. And just, again, to any MAGA kids who might be in the chat, this might hurt your head on a Monday to have to be asked to think, but who's behind all of those blacked out lines in those binders that Pam Bondi gave to DC Drano and libs of TikTok when they were dancing around like, woo, we got the Epstein files. And then they opened up the binders and they were like, hey, wait a minute, we can't read this. It's so blacked out. Who do you think Pam Bondi is protecting? Because it's not Bill Clinton and it's not Bill Gates and it's not Prince Andrew. And
right. And because he's talked openly about those folks. There was even one of the bullshit storylines. Is it Tara Molino or something? There's another Tara who has a podcast all by herself. She did a thing where she interviewed Trump's lawyer. So she interviewed Trump's lawyer. And Trump lawyer is one of those things like, and it was let's see, fuck if I could find it. There was a really, really standout moment where she goes, I interviewed his lawyer and Trump volunteered to speak to him. Nobody else volunteered to speak to me about this stuff. And if you listen to where is it? Tara Palmieri. That's what it was. See if I can find it.
Yes.
Yeah. So let me play
an excellent Tara.
Right. But let's see. This is it. See if you can tell me what and I'll tell you, we got to see a guest with news. Put this over here. So this is her thing. This is the lawyer for Jeffrey Epstein that she spoke to. This is her interview with him. Now, see if you can spot what flagged my attention in this.
Mr. Trump. But you can also get...
Hold on. Let me back up here. There you go.
Trump in his office. And I got a call that afternoon from his lawyer saying, look, you can depose Mr. Trump, but you can also get on the phone with him whenever you want, and he'll talk to you, and he'll give you whatever information that you want. It can be an open dialogue so that you don't have to depose him. And
Did that? Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. First of all, he didn't have a... Yeah. So Trump offered to talk to this guy. The whole conversation about him talking to this lawyer and this guy, like, Trump was forthcoming and talked to me and said he would tell me anything I wanted so that he wouldn't depose him in it.
Exactly. So he was going to be like, well, off the record.
Right.
Off the record.
Right.
Off
Not
the
under
record.
oath. Exactly. That's what that was about.
Shady.
He wasn't being helpful. He was trying to turn state's evidence, essentially, without any of the responsibility. He did not want to do it on the record. That's what it was.
That's not how stuff's supposed to work.
Right,
So,
and she follows. Unfortunately, Tara Palmieri, continues with this. Like, so he seemed to be very forthcoming. I was like, bullshit. His lawyer called and said, you can depose him if you want to, but he'll probably just shut it down. Was the unspoken part of it. But you could just have a conversation with him, and you won't have to depose him. And so the lawyer was like, okay, and they never deposed Trump in it. They never deposed him. He was never under oath.
And they also
Still hasn't
threatened witnesses from testifying. So
Right.
some witnesses wouldn't come forward. Other witnesses recanted testimony after being threatened. But the testimony still stands. Katie Johnson's testimony that I recorded and have shared repeatedly still stands. And over the weekend, it got some traction thanks to the Elon thing. And I was like, I'll just keep sharing this. And I will just keep asking you who you think Pam Bondi is protecting behind all of those blacked out lines. She has nothing to gain by protecting anyone but Trump.
Right.
So, and a question like that breaks your average MAGA brain because they can't figure out what to do. They don't understand. Like, they ask for the Epstein files, which you and I have talked about. You have said to people, if you were able to pick out Jeffrey Epstein as a pedo within the first 5 seconds, what does that make Trump for being best friends with him forever? You and I have also debunked the manufactured public falling out that never happened.
Right.
That they keep defending Trump with. Oh, but he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. Oh, but he said he was this. Oh, but no, he didn't. That was all fake. They manufactured a falling out so that they could keep fucking children. But with nobody paying attention to them. Because if you manufacture a fallout and you say, we're not friends anymore, I don't know her, then people stop looking at you and start looking elsewhere and start focusing on other stuff. And then the two of you can fly off on the Lolita Express and go back to Epstein Island and doctor some flight logs. Because that's what they did. His name appears on the flight logs more than anybody else's name.
Yeah.
We know that. That was
And
revealed.
where are Trump's flight logs? I keep pushing this. Like, we know of at least one time from that news report where Trump had Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and an unnamed underage girl, as far as we know, on that plane. He waited for them late at night to fly to Florida. They were, God knows, they could have been trafficking that girl. They more than likely were. The reporter said, I just thought it was their niece. I wasn't really familiar with the guy at the time. Right? Jesus Christ. So
this is why you embed a female reporter with Jeffrey Epstein, and then she'd be like, this is all wrong. This is hinky. If a female reporter was spending any amount of time on that story
well,
at the time, if she was
he wouldn't have allowed it.
No, then that's what I'm saying is that like a really smart investigative reporter who was a woman, if she got an assignment in like 1986 to follow Jeffrey Epstein around, she would have been like hinky, 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 hinky immediately.
Right.
Immediately. Right. And that's another reason why this is
I mean,
such
I think
profoundly awful I think
there's
is that these girls were so unprotected.
I think there's a very clear headline that could come out of this. That Epstein may have involved Trump in sex trafficking. That is
there you go.
That is a
Not
legit.
did.
Well, we don't know because we don't know who that girl was. We need to find out. And so you can't just say, for sure, allegedly on his plane. That's what I mean. And it's different when you're flying on somebody else's plane and you don't know who the other passengers are. You can have plausible deniability, right? The important thing is that we know Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and this unknown girl flew on this plane. So that is a legit headline that would fly anywhere. Epstein may have involved Trump in human trafficking. Boom. Used his plane.
I'll write about it. I'll write about it today for Political Voices Network. As soon as you and I are done, I immediately go and write a blog and I share our show time together. But that's a great headline to pull people in because it's most likely true.
It's from Ultimate Golf. That story showed up first in Ultimate Golf or, Awesome Bro Golf or whatever the stupid article.
Awesome.
Right. But I want to say the New Yorker wrote about it the first time. And it's just it was this cute puff piece where this golf dude was following Trump around. And while Trump has this reporter checking in on his life, he decides, how do I show off to this motherfucker? Like, remember, because Trump managed everything. So he wanted this dude to see Jeff and Ghislaine show up on his plane. Right? He didn't just go, oh, well, it's a Wednesday and they're coming down there. Nah, I got this reporter with me. You probably want to take another flight. He didn't do that. He was like, we'll wait for him. He didn't show off to the reporter like, fuck this, we're leaving without him. So what? Was Epstein paying for the fuel? Is that how he got his plane back down there when he was a broke motherfucker?
I don't know.
Right? And this is during The Apprentice.
Yeah, and it's also worth mentioning that during the 2024 campaign, when Trump's shitty plane needed repairs, he could have used any other plane, but he chose to repaint the Lolita Express.
Right.
Which, why? Why that plane? Why that one? Why?
Yeah.
So, and why don't more people know about that? Media. And and that's another way to shut a MAGA down. If you've got someone trolling you, tell them to Google Trump campaign Lolita Express. Mm-hmm. And there are, the cultists of the cult people will still continue to this day to right before I was here on the show with you, justifying their friendship, saying it was all business transactions and it was just business, and then he used his plane. Well, his plane wasn't working, and so he borrowed that plane. Well, why?
Yeah.
If he's such a successful businessman and has all of these great things going for him, has all this money, could have fixed his plane sooner before he had to campaign, but didn't, and then could have done anything. There you go. There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. And yet, because there's all this other shit going on, and this is during.
There's not a lot of those fucking things sitting around. You can. There's that like service. I want to say, but it's probably
NetJets.
Like
you just rent a plane from NetJets. NetJets is that you can charter. If you have 10 grand or however much it costs to charter a private jet, you can charter a private jet. I would also say that considering who Trump also hangs out with, there are other people who could have loaned him a plane. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, and they were already friends by this point. So why didn't Elon buy him a plane? Why didn't Elon get him a plane or give him a SpaceX plane? I don't know how things work. But anyway, why not? Why that plane? And people are like, they can't answer.
Yeah.
They cannot answer. Maxwell case logs show how frequently Trump flew on Epstein's plane. And again, you show me that Bill Clinton did anything bad when he arrived on Epstein's island, I will hold him accountable for it. But we've talked about witness testimony saying, nope, he never did anything with any of the teenage girls, with the little girls.
Yep.
If he did something with a girl who's over 18, that's legal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not great, but it's legal. It's about the crimes. And again, over and over again, just a basic question of why would you vote for a convicted felon who was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein? Why isn't that enough for you to turn you off? You want to push away the convicted felon part because you want to think it's a witch hunt and that it's a Democrat. Bullshit. Shut up. When a jury unanimously convicts somebody on all 34 felony counts, maybe it's not a witch hunt. But anyway, because they have no natural curiosity, they're not going to ask themselves those basic questions like, why? So they'll push away the felon stuff. But when you corner them on the Epstein thing, they just don't come back because there's no answer. The way you and I ask questions of them, they can't answer it. And that's sometimes
because if they did, the entire facade would come crumbling down. That's,
Exactly. Because then they would have to admit they were wrong.
Yeah.
And they can't do that. And
Speaking,
short of admitting you were wrong, just admit you were lied to. That's fine. We'll take that. Can you do that?
I want to
Can you
get
admit you were lied
Tara's.
to?
I don't know if we call it Tara's take. Sure.
Oh, I like that.
I'm going to take Tara's take on
We should have a little theme music for that
on
and
a
a
couple
logo.
of. Right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Tara's take. No, that's not it. Hold on. Tara's take.
It needs like
No,
you need like just a
hip.
sting. You need
Yeah.
a sting. That's all you
It
need.
needs-
You don't need
yeah.
music. You need a sting for it, as we
Right.
would say in radio.
Oh
Kind
yeah,
of
that's
noise.
true. Like, wait, I have an idea. This might actually work. Let's
Yeah.
see, this one. Tara's take. Every Monday.
All right.
Something like
Bring
that. It's just from.
All right. Now, do you remember
Also
what
with
you were gonna
Hal's
ask
words.
me?
Sorry, yeah. So no, it's not. It's about certain. Sorry, I have to re-up the show every time. 1 second. There we go. I just have to. Yeah.
Power up.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of stories. We'll go through them because all these things are such a Gordian knot that we could fall into them. Whatever. So.
Forever splitting it down.
One of my favorite little stories that seems to be part of the like hidden under the radar. And we'll talk about the LA rioting stuff. We talked about that with Tara Devlin in the first hour. We'll talk a little bit about that right now. I really do think it's like any sequel, not as good as the original. It's more like a reboot, not very well done. But right here,
it didn't
there's
go
this
well
story about
in 2020.
Pete
motherfucker.
Pete Bagsniff is having a real hard time. White House struggles to hire senior advisors to Pete Hegseth. So, yeah.
Is it because nobody wants to work for a
Yes,
thrice married alcoholic wife beating Nazi? I don't
Something
know.
like that.
It could be that. Could be
Right.
that.
No, thank you. All right. So at least 3 people have turned down potential roles working for the defense secretary. Former Fox News host. Supporters say his leadership has been effective. Right. Supporters have. They're not going to take the job, but yeah. The White House is looking for a new chief of staff and several senior advisors to report. By the way, to replace the bros that he brought in, accused of leaking, even though it was a lie, punted them, and then can't win them back or whatever. So stupid. After a series of missteps,
Nobody
that's
wants
adorable.
to work for him because they're afraid of a Nuremberg trial at some point.
Yes,
remember, I was just following orders is also what the Nazis said.
Right. But it was so far not found suitable takers, according to 4 current and former administration officials. What did they? These guys all pass a lie detector test and promise to devote themselves to the Constitution and not to Donald Trump? Like, pass. Right.
Yeah. I'm not surprised that nobody wants to work for him.
Yeah.
Because guilty by association is basically where you would end up.
Can you be derpy by association, I think? Yeah.
I mean, look at him. He's so aggro, and the posturing, the ultra alpha male posturing that they do is so weak and pathetic. There's nothing masculine about what they're all the play acting. Yeah, it's very masculine to build yourself a makeup studio in the Pentagon, fox face. Anyway, so my take is, of course, nobody wants to work for him because his stain will end up on them and their secrets will be exposed in a signal chat someday or something. But this tells you so much. I don't want to work for that person. The issue is that person, right? If it's one person, if people are lining up for a job and the one person they want turns it down, oh, I have a conflict, or well, I don't like you, or whatever. This is not that. They've now gone to 3 people. That's embarrassing. That's just embarrassing that they can't fill which is a very coveted role in the United States government, because it means you're in line to help run you're helping run the Defense Department. You're helping keep America safe from enemies, foreign and domestic. Oh wait, it's that domestic part. It's the domestic part of that. That's what it is, because they're not going to. They don't have the spine to stand up to Trump or stand up to. They don't want to have to follow what they're seeing are orders against the nation, against the American people, rather than for, and they don't want to be associated with that. Even if they may express loyalty to the Trump regime, they won't do it to that extent because they won't put themselves in the hot seat like that.
Right.
That's cowardice. That's just your basic MAGA cowardice there.
But I mean, it's also like, I think anybody legit isn't going to take that job working for him because you're going to, because you're going to ruin your career.
Anyway, what are they going to do? Apologize to the Joint Chiefs of Staff that they insulted and begged one of them to come back? That they got rid? No, that's not going to work. Anybody who stood up to Trump in the first administration is not welcome now. So anyone who would even question a motive wouldn't be considered. So I would love to know who those, do we know who the 3 people are that turned him down, or is it just 3 people?
Just 3 people so far. Like they interviewed, they know that 3 were interviewed. Thank you, Kelly, for the super chat. Appreciate it. So the other piece of news, and that's not surprising. That's not going to change anytime soon because again, I think people know it's going to screw their career. The other thing is Trump's travel ban goes into effect today, and it's better worded this time around because they know what hung them up the last time around. So it's visa restrictions and full-on bans. The restrictions are, technically speaking, they're all restrictions. If somebody has a legit workaround, the State Department has the right to move on something, and so that's how they've given themselves a wiggle. They probably won't, but they have to review it, and they will. So it's not an abject ban. That's how they get around this. It's like, oh yeah, we're not. It's not a
What if somebody's a convicted felon and they leave the United States and then they try to return to the United States? What happens to them at entry points?
Well, if they're a citizen, they get to come back into the country.
United States, but a convicted felon who is banned from traveling to 38 countries, they still get to come back.
Yeah, they still get to come back. Yeah, they're still citizens.
Okay, well,
unless again, you want anybody convicted of a felony in the United States to not be able to travel abroad and come back home again.
No, I'm talking about somebody who's skipping out on their bail, leaves the country, then tries to come back after traveling to, I don't know, Saudi Arabia and palling around with guys from Qatar and getting a plane and then comes back. I'm just saying someone like that really shouldn't be given re-entry into the United States. They should just immediately be arrested upon arrival. You know where I'm going here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just saying that there's a different set of rules for a certain person than there are for everybody else.
The other thing is there's a different set of rules for U.S. citizens versus non-citizens. And this is about, in all seriousness, this is about him specifically. It's Iran, Afghanistan, Myanmar, Libya, Chad, Sudan, Somalia, Yemen, the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, which they pick out specifically for a total ban, whereas like Burundi, Togo, and Sierra Leone get a partial ban. I'm guessing Sierra Leone because that's the Cote d'Ivoire. This is where the diamonds come from, so they figure some people will come there for that kind of business. Haiti has an absolute ban, whereas Cuba and Venezuela have visas restricted. Turkmenistan, curiously enough, visas restricted. I don't know why it wouldn't apply to Russia entirely. If you're going to go for Turkmenistan, I got to say, I'm a little surprised that you didn't add Russia. Oh, no, I'm not.
Do you mean, Hal? What are you getting at? I just don't quite know. I mean, it's just, they're just showing all of the racism cards. It's what it is. That's all it is. And what we're seeing in Los Angeles and this is all stuff to churn people up and distract them from the fact that Donald Trump stole the election and is all over the Epstein files. So that is exactly what we're seeing right now. Donald Trump loves a manufactured distraction for any reason to not be talking about his terrible things. But the fact that
you think the chances are that he's going to keep ratcheting stuff up as things get worse. Sure. Right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. So, Thursday, those dual bombs drop from Elon's Twitter account, and Democrats are like, oh, what? Oh, well, we got to investigate this, and we got to investigate this. And Trump is like, send in the National Guard to L.A., distract.
Right. Send Dr. Phil with him.
Travel ban. Right. Make the travel ban worse. Take away more rights from Americans. Eric Swalwell shared a video on Instagram, and I hadn't had a chance to do a deeper dive as I was getting ready to come on the show. But he said that in committee, Republicans voted to deport American citizens, period, natural-born citizens, period, without I didn't get the justification, for any reason though, you and I, they could just show up at our door now and be like, you're out of here. And we'd be like, why? we don't like what you said about the president. And it's like, well, that's not a reason to deport an American-born person. So if Republicans are now going to ignore people who were born here and have always lived here and are going to deport us, like what? You know, like I'm just like, how far does this go before somebody stands up and goes, no, this is, you know, like Republicans need to stand up and go, there was a Rubicon I was willing to cross for you, but not this one. I'm not going as far as like, you can't just deport a natural born American citizen because they're being critical of the government. That's literally why this country was founded. We were founded for the freedom to push back against tyranny and oppression, and why we're going to be in the streets on Saturday. And it's him trying to see how far he can go, how far he can push, and because nobody ever stops him, nobody ever pulls him back. And I want to go back to what you said when you were wrapping up with Devlin, is that he can't be shamed, but he can be embarrassed. He doesn't, like, you can't hold him accountable, but we can embarrass him. And I wish that more people could make that distinction, that it is okay to criticize the man and his actions while still being a patriotic and American citizen. Like, that makes you a patriot. It makes you patriotic when you stand up and question when your government is doing fuckery. And that was one of the and when people say Democrats don't have a defining message, I will tell you as someone, and this was also something that you guys were talking about with Devlin. The Republican Party does not have a copyright on patriotism. They do not own the word patriot. They do not own the word patriotism. They do not own the flag. They do not. That belongs to all of us. Right. It is our country. These are our streets. This is our flag. Those are our votes. This is our lives. And it is now, we have now reached that tipping point where it has to stop being about who you voted for and do you care about this country. And Devlin says, and I don't disagree with her, that Republicans just hate democracy. And they hate the ability that everybody can be treated equally, which
it's the raison d'etre of their party. I mean, again, Republicans are for us.
It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I tweeted earlier, shared the side-by-side of what Republicans did at their convention versus what we did at ours. And they held up signs saying mass deportations now. And we held up signs that said USA, USA, USA.
Yeah.
You know? And that's, I'm so exhausted from what is so much performative bullshittery, and that people are enabling it for the sake of staying in Trump's favor. And I don't know why you want to stay in Trump's favor when he brings nothing but misery and disaster and destruction and loss. Absolutely. You were promised winning and you got nothing but whining and a manufactured, war on the streets of Los Angeles because he doesn't want you talking about the Epstein files and he doesn't want you talking about the election. That's the mess. And we can't get the mainstream media to talk about that. Instead, we get Terry Moran getting suspended for telling the truth about what Stephen Miller is doing.
Right.
And you get someone like Simone Sanders saying, well, what do you expect? You said all of that stuff. What do you expect? Of course you're going to lose your job. No, it's your job to tell the truth. It's our job to tell the truth.
Well, okay.
It's her job to tell the truth. It's Terry Moran's job to tell the truth, and it's our job to push back.
I agree.
That's a lot at once.
I agree. But look, like, I appreciate what Terry Moran said. I completely agree with his assessment of it. But it's an opinion based on the soul of Stephen Miller and how he feels about him. It's different than news. And I get why the paper would be nervous about that kind of thing in a real news situation, that they would kind of go, we don't want to become Fox and start talking like that about political. It's the bind that you get in when you want to be a real news person. He should, if people should be able to say, if there's a separation between people's private Twitter and their actual job and things, I think we should somehow try to settle on what that is. But when it comes to a reporter of Moran's scale, look, just say what you say and stand by it. If they're going to suspend you for what you said, keep it up. Right? Or don't, that's not the job. And again, there should be a point where people don't look at what CNN's saying when they say something that is a fact and go, well, this guy secretly just hates him. So this is just these aren't, the truth isn't truth and facts aren't facts. And that is the weapon that they use to say that CNN is fake news and all that kind of stuff, because they use, this guy hates him, therefore everything he says, even if we know it's factually correct, is a lie, right? That's what they use all the time. So you can't continue to give them ammunition. If you're in that position, you don't get to talk like the rest of us. And the same thing should be true of politicians. It's just that Trump has broken down that communication so badly that people forget that politicians and specifically and journalists shouldn't talk like that online. That's not their fucking gig. It's our gig.
Should and should not have been thrown out in a long time. Look at Scott Jennings on CNN screaming propaganda every single day. And yet
he's on a 5-part panel live on the air. That's the thing. And he's meant to be that person. That's the problem with these,
right.
For all this bullshit about like Jon Stewart breaking up Crossfire, what effectively he did was launch the 5-person Crossfire. Instead of being 2 guys, bullshitting across a desk, turning real issues into wrestling, it ended up being 5 or 6 people. That, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but my point is, when MAGA's like, well, you get your news from CNN, your news is fake. Well, Scott Jennings goes on CNN all the time. So is what Scott Jennings says on CNN, is that the only truth that CNN shares?
Of course it is.
In your opinion?
Of course it is. That's crazy. Exactly.
But see, that's insanity to me. And I think I've made the point on this
It's
show.
absurd.
And I made the point on my show before. It's just like the truth is the truth regardless of the source, and you don't get to decide what's fake and what's real based on what you're on your feelings, which is what Trump did to the media. Because if you're watching CNN, and I think I've made this analogy before on your show, but if you were sitting in an airport lounge and the TV above you was on CNN and they showed you a story about Joe Biden's historic economy and you're like, no, that's fake, but the next story was a hurricane destroying communities in Florida, you would believe that was real. So
right.
I'm frustrated by that take. Just because you don't like something doesn't make it fake. It just makes it harder for you to accept because you don't like it. And it may take you a little bit to sit with it and parse it and try to understand it, but MAGA doesn't make that distinction like you and I do. And that's why I get frustrated. And you have said, that's because you're a thinking and feeling person and you care. Yes. But for me, it's hitting them back the exact way that they do things, which is why when they tweet something that's ridiculous, I tweet it back almost in the same exact language that they use, but with truth, because it's ridiculous. And it's the way they manipulate semantics to try to distract from reality is incredibly frustrating to thinking, caring, smart people like you and I, and people who watch our shows, and people who take the time to learn. And the quote unquote do your own research cult never does. Because when I say to them, because when they come back with like, Joe Biden sniffed his kid's head, what? That's like the dumbest fucking thing to come back with when I say Donald Trump was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein for 25 years. The false equivalence doesn't work, and none of that lines up, and it's all of this weak shit and all of that, and we get mired in that rather than focusing on the things that are really important, which is why I always try to turn it back on them and say, why do you want to pay $6,000 more for goods and services this year thanks to the tariffs?
Right.
Because that's real. That's a real thing.
Yes. And it seems like Trump is reluctantly dealing with the fact that things are biting him in the ass and that the rule of law does still apply. And we haven't spoken since Kilmar Abrego Garcia was brought back into the country to and he had this
actually some fucking fake charges so no one would say he was a taco.
Right. But also, even still, poison the jury pool while you're at it. But the point is that they did it. That in and of itself, the pressure, ladies and gentlemen, I know he could have, but the pressure worked, and it took time, and the actions of the judiciary worked. The Supreme Court worked, and even though they're going to charge him with stuff, the chances of it actually going through are ridiculous. Plus, if he gets found guilty of the charges they're putting forward here, even if he's railroaded, he will serve those years here in a federal jail in the United States for longer than Trump will be president. So the next president or somebody in there can either commute or pardon him, and he won't have been sent to die in a fucking El Salvadoran gang prison. That in and of itself is a secondary win. Is it optimal? No. But even in the worst case scenario of how this goes, he at least still gets to stay here during those things. He won't be deported until his time is up. And so it allows us to make this a referendum in the next election, make sure it's a serious issue that people, it'll keep it in the and that's if he's found guilty. If he's not found guilty, he'll have an argument to sue to stay in the United States specifically.
Right.
Right. And
millions of character witnesses too.
Right, exactly.
Just like
so,
the mayor of Newark and Monica McIver. And
yeah, exactly.
Anyone else they try to falsely arrest.
So this happened. Like this is no matter what Trump tries to do, there's still a system in place because, like the Department of Education thing, where he wants to get rid of the Department of Education, but then he wants to stop woke whatever and control schools. Well, you can't do that without the Department of Education, dummy. If you got no carrot, fuck is your stick worth? So,
right.
if you remove that part of it, it only works if it's carrot and stick together, because the only reason anybody's going to come over is because of the carrot for you to hit them with the stick. So that it just falls apart. So he has to keep the Department of Education so he can do his woke goals and make them actually happen, right?
Well, and that'll also mean he'll have to get rid of the wrestling lady because she got hammered by Democrats in committee.
The math was so glorious.
Hammered. She had note cards in front of her with answers. She literally brought cheat sheets with her.
Yeah, I'll pardon him in 28. Anything. I will commute his sentence. I don't know if I'll pardon him. It depends on the seriousness of the charges. I want due process. It isn't about the guy. It's about due process. And that's the part
Everyone is entitled.
Yes.
If you are on American soil, you are entitled to due process under the law. Period.
That's right.
Period, Kristi Noem. Period. End. That's it. And if you don't understand that, you should not have a job in the United States government because, I mean, it is, just like the basics of what the Constitution provides, the basics of what the American government is supposed to do. If you can't grasp the fundamentals of what your job requires, you don't get to do that job. I think that's fair. And what I'm mostly frustrated. Like, I want to ask you, because you and I are here in the independent media, and we can't do anything about what the mainstream media does, but in holding them accountable, how do we keep the Epstein and the vote tampering story at the top when Trump is creating a physically demonstrative distraction in Los Angeles? So he's trying to do to Los Angeles what he tried to do to Portland in 2020. And as someone who was in Portland, so like it's so almost identical to what they did in Portland that it's like, why are you doing this? Like, it didn't work for Chad Wolf. It's not going to work for you. What happened in Portland in 2020 was because they sent troops here that we didn't need. We didn't need that. The police here didn't need the help of anybody from the government.
Minneapolis, same thing. It was
Minneapolis. Any city
George
that
Floyd's
happened,
brother actually talked the crowd down before the National Guard showed up in Minneapolis. He literally came out. That was what changed it, not the fact that they were there.
Shit happened here as a response to the government attacking citizens here. And it was contained to like one or two city blocks downtown. It was not the whole city. It was not every street. It was not every neighborhood. It was a very small area contained, but the way they covered it on the right made it look like it was the entire city was on fire 24/7 for the entire summer of 2020. And that is not the case. And it's the same thing. That is not the case in Los Angeles. And the fact that they can fabricate a distraction like this away from things that actually matter is a huge part of why our society is so fucked right now. So it's, how do we make people focus on the things that are important instead of, explosions actually, they're going to distract you. And that in Los Angeles is going to distract you, but it should not distract you from the fact that Elon Musk told the truth about Trump in those tweets, whether he kept them or not, whether you delete a tweet or not, it doesn't change the fact that he shared the truth. And how do we keep that at the top of the news cycle?
Well, here's the thing. They will do it for us. We just have to be ready to pounce when it actually happens, because there's going to be an ebb and flow in this as they try to dust this behind them a little bit and pretend that, they'll follow the laser pointer for a little bit. But Pam Bondi's not going to release a bunch of Epstein files. And the ratchet, watch this come up in rotating cycles, because she cannot. If she does, it will expose the fact that not only is Trump in the Katie Johnson story that you talked about, but also in the phone logs. He's not just on some sort of abstract client list that people have made up is a thing. That's an online distraction in and of itself. It's the details and the depth of the relationship that they had. And again, look, Trump nearly ate shit on the stairs yesterday.
That was beautiful.
And,
a little bit of karma.
Oh,
the photo of his face. Have you seen that one?
Yes.
I love it. I just love it for him. I'm gonna fall.
Yeah. And especially after all the shit he gave.
And then, did you see Marco Rubio tripping up, pretending to trip on the same step to cover, because he's so owned by Trump now? He's like, hey, puppy, I want you to fall down. Fall down for daddy.
Yeah.
And Puppy Rubio did it. It just disgusts me. It disgusts me, the performativeness of everything. Nancy Mace and her performative bullshittery with, oh my God, it just makes me so angry. She's out there. I don't know if you saw, but she said she was trying to fix the Broligarchy breakup in her way, and said it could all be solved over a plate of scattered, smothered, covered, and chunked, which is a Waffle House reference. When you get your your side of fries, your home fries, scattered, smothered, covered, or chunked. I always went scattered and smothered, kept it simple.
Gotcha.
Scattered, smothered, covered, and chunked means you get them. It's the hash browns, and you have onions and cheese and chili. Blah. It's terrible. But anyway, she made an AI of herself with Elon and Trump at the Waffle House, because that's what she should be doing on the taxpayer dime, not calling out adjudicated rapist, convicted felon, Epstein bestie Donald Trump for being an adjudicated rapist pedophile when she claims to be a rape survivor, and has still said nothing about Donald Trump letting international sex trafficking rapist brothers Andrew and Tristan Tate back in the United States. Has said nothing, but she has time. She has time to harass her own citizens and play around with the AI and be a bitch to trans women on Twitter. She has time for that. That's what that's a gift. That is a gift to us, for every person who made fun of Joe Biden for succumbing to gravity. Oh, no, everybody's watching.
I think we should suggest
this is all the way down.
You want to be on a coin, dum-dum? Here's your profile.
You want your official portrait? Hang that on the USDA. Hang a flag of that on the White House on Saturday. Put that on a t-shirt and walk around.
Yeah.
Mommy.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they let him walk up the stairs unaccompanied? Why don't they make the fake Melania hold his baby tiny hand up the steps?
Because they'd have to. I don't know. She's too expensive. I don't know. Because they're afraid it will drive up the value of her meme coin. Flagging.
I think the fake Melania is Margot Martin. That's my guess. Because Margot Martin looks like young Melania so much. If you've ever seen a picture of what Margot Martin looks like, she looks exactly like young Melania. It's like, it's creepy, actually. It's pretty creepy, and it makes me believe that she was hired only to be a body double for Melania when Melania didn't want to be around him.
Gotcha.
That's just my take. My take, never been proven, never been discussed. It's just my take. Yeah. But that screenshot of him can't be shared enough.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
That's embarrassing. You put that side by side with my Epstein thing and be like, that raped a 12-year-old girl and threw money at her to tell her to get a fucking abortion because he refused to rape her with a condom on. He raped her bareback. A 12-year-old and a 13-year-old slapped them in the face because they didn't perform a blowjob well, a 12-year-old. And then he raped them bareback and threw cash at them to get a fucking abortion. That is in Katie Johnson's testimony in my voice. People, when I share that and they're like, that's AI, I'm like, bitch, that's my voice. But if you think it's AI, maybe I should take it as a compliment.
Maybe
because I read it as...
I think they mean the story.
I read it without any emotion to keep it... Because it's horrible when you hear what he did. It's worse than when you just read it. MAGA doesn't read. That's why I recorded it. But it's like on the third, it's like defendant Trump, over and over again. Defendant. If you're a
Right.
defendant in a rape case, it means you did something bad.
This is the Maggie Martin lady.
Margot.
Margot Martin. Sorry, there she is.
Tell me she's not a dead ringer. She's a dead ringer.
Except she smiles. It's different. Yeah.
That's why you know she's the fake Melania.
Right.
Because the fake Melania pictures with her smiling with the sunglasses on. Everyone's
If they want to bring somebody, to smile, that's who they bring. Okay, sorry.
That's right. That's correct.
Yeah. That's her at Mar-a-Lago.
Look at my boobies, Daddy. Look down my shirt, Daddy. I mean, her and Caroline Leavitt doing the booby lean in the crowd. Did you see she was showing off her cleavage? Like, look down my blouse, Daddy. She is granddaddy as she's actually Caroline. Her husband is 60 and she's 28. And I usually don't lean ageist, but when you make fun of Joe Biden for being old and your husband is old enough to be your own grandfather, I'm gonna call you out about that. That's gross. I'm like, why? Why do you want that? That's gross and that's weird and you have some issues. You're showing off your cleavage to Donald Trump and you're cozying up to a man old enough to be your grandpa. I would ask, where'd that come from, Caroline? Where'd that come from? Your cult? And it's the same thing as like Marsha Blackburn thinks it's fine to marry off 12 and 13-year-olds to old men in Tennessee. She's fine with that, along with the child labor laws. You're not the pro-life party. And it's, again, like every accusation is a confession from the pedo cult. So, if they're saying stuff, look at them closer.
Yeah, well, also, can I tell you my favorite quote of the, I guess, weekend or whatever?
Yes, please.
So they've been interviewing some Doge people lately, and post Musk, and some of them are obviously they've already planted their malware and they can just leave, whatever. And one of them was interviewed by NPR or whatever. What was the name? Sahil Lavinia was interviewed, and this is my favorite quote of the whole article. I was pretty surprised, actually, how efficient the government was.
Okay.
He's like, he goes, the overall message, Doge was transparent and vibe of ask for forgiveness, not permission. So when a blogger asked for an interview with Gumroad, he agreed. And when asked, he talked about his work at Doge, including how little inefficiency he saw compared to what he was expecting. Elon was pretty clear about how he wanted Doge to be maximally transparent. That's something he said a lot in private and publicly. So I thought, okay, I'll take him at his word. I'll be transparent. Shortly after the interview, he got an email and he was fired. He got just 55 days. He was fired. And what was his crime? He brought up the fact that it was relatively non-existent waste and fraud. That, by the way,
that's because
relatively
Doge is not a real department. God damn it.
Well, and also, it was. It's just they renamed the digital office of the White House or whatever. But the point is that that's why you've got a $2 trillion deficit and $160 billion in stuff you've cut just because you don't like it. That isn't waste, fraud, or abuse. And the more they, there was a period where that was a winning message for them. Clearly, that they were saying, we're getting rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse. And the assumption on the right and everywhere else is that there's shit tons of it. Half of what the government does is bullshit, right? That's the thing. Even the stuff that I like is probably just rife with people freeloading and stealing, right? That was the story. And then what did they come back with? Actually, no. Like, what if there's fraud? Why hasn't anybody been arrested? Fuckwad.
Yeah. Actually, Biden left us a pretty solid ship here to sail, and we're just gonna run it into the biggest block of just run it right into a brick wall. Yeah. Not even an ice flow, not even anything like just. We're going to take this and we're going to tank this as soon as we can. 138 days in, Donald Trump declares war on Los Angeles. All of this is falling apart. It was destined to fall apart from the outset, which is, I think, what we were starting with at the top of the hour, is that the two of them were destined to clash and fall apart. And it's just one of those things where, because they were both the same person and trying to control the same thing at the same time, and someone's not going to be able to be, so like in Highlander, there can be only one.
Right.
So Elon says, all right, I'm out of here. This is bullshit. Your bill is bullshit. You're gonna do this is terrible. You're gonna tank the economy. You're gonna do this. You're gonna do that. And you're in the Epstein files. And I helped you win the election. I'm out. And everyone's like, what do we do now? Seriously, because and some people are saying what Elon tweeted is part of the distraction. Like this breakup is part of the distraction because they want to do worse things than what they've already done. But that kid saying there's actually not what they said that there was. We didn't find what they said was here. Just like there's not an invasion at the border. Just like there's not anything that they're using as scare tactics. None of those things are happening.
Right.
And goes back to my original question of how do you make people focus on the real stuff when they're so busy creating the circus and the smoke show with the stuff that doesn't matter, which has been like a through line of everything that we have ever talked about when it comes to Trump, because so much of it is fake, like the game of 3-card Monte. He's like, don't look here, but look here, but look here, but where's this and where's that? And we can't get people to focus on the things that matter because they're putting on this show. But if someone that close to Trump is telling you that he cheated, if someone that close to Trump is telling you he's all over the Epstein files, even if he's not someone that he's a ketamine-cooked, unelected immigrant Nazi bureaucrat, I'm not pro Elon. I'm not a fan. I did ask him to stop suppressing my account, but he hasn't responded. But if he is truly exposing the stuff that we have believed to be true for all along, that should be the biggest story. That should be continuously the biggest story. And we have to keep working to make that the biggest story because that should lead to a third impeachment. But not just a third impeachment. Because if Elon Musk is saying Donald Trump would not have won without him, that means J.D. Vance would not be there without him. That means nobody in this illegitimate administration would be there because the entire administration is illegitimate. And Devlin and I did talk about this on Thursday when it was all breaking, because there's no precedent for what happens when you learn that an entire election was rigged, an entire administration is illegitimate. There are no machinations in place already provided by any legal documents that the government has created to remove an illegitimate administration and replace them. So what do? Do you just negate the 2024 election? Do you have another election? Do you give it to the first runner-up, who was Kamala Harris, and therefore legitimately our rightful 47th president, just like Hillary Clinton, our rightful 45th president? Or do we just sit around and wait for the midterms? Because I said to Devlin on Thursday, and we were just spinning again, because I don't know.
I would say false choice, but go ahead.
I'm not. What's that?
I would say false choice, but go ahead.
But I mean, it's just, you want to believe that the government would stand up and fix shit once they found out, oh, this election was rigged and tampered and illegitimate, and there's no way. I mean, we were saying back in November there was no way he won all 7 swing states, and he definitely didn't win all 7 swing states on election night. So in this moment, and there were people who have been saying, oh, I hope there's a Democratic shadow cabinet, and we needed to, and I always wanted a Democratic press secretary from the start, and all of that. At the very basic minimum, they could, if there was any way to get enough Republicans to stand up and go, we can't let this happen to America, because enough of them stood up and said, this big bullshit bill, we're not going to pay, we're not voting for this.
Right.
So there's enough of them that have enough wherewithal to do that. I would say you could replace an administration and leave the Congress in place until the midterms. You could replace the administration with the administration that would have come in under Kamala Harris, and then leave that in place. Let them start undoing the damage that this current illegitimate administration has done.
Right.
While the Congress stays in place, you can elect new leadership in Congress if you feel so inclined. And then just try to fix stuff until the midterms, and let the American people decide who should be in Congress. But I don't know if that's something that could be accomplished. First, they have to figure out if Elon is lying and he's just fucking with Trump, or he's telling us the truth. And yes, not only did I give him money, but I used technology to manipulate election results. We have to get those facts. Democrats have to get those facts on the record. Elon needs to be subpoenaed to speak before Congress. That has to happen. He's not an elected official.
Yeah, okay, but they don't. Again, I agree. Hang on for a second.
just want the
I agree
answer.
with I agree with the gripe in this particular instance. I don't know that the election was illegitimate. I don't know that I'm all in on that it was stolen. I do know that we acquiesced a shit ton of votes during that even made it possible to get that close where they could steal it in all those areas. That's on us. And so to some degree, you know, when they're bitching about like these right wingers saying this isn't what everybody voted for, like, motherfucker, this is what he was saying. This is exactly what you voted for.
Right.
The same thing is true of a lot of these, like the people that are allegedly protesting in downtown LA right now didn't vote.
Right.
They're voting with Molotov cocktails or fucking smoke bombs, but they didn't vote when it mattered. And that's the difference. We did vote for this shit. We did. We allowed this to happen. This is the will of the voters, even in the essence of it being like, us being outnumbered in a particular instance. But I would love to lay it at somebody else's feet. And are the right deluded? Absolutely. But on our side, there was an absolute slow walk. We saw the genocide Joe shit had a major impact, especially in Michigan. Even if he hadn't won all 7, there was a chance he would have won 2 anyways, just because of that shit. Minnesota and Minneapolis both, or in Michigan both. So it's on us. There is no, like, the idea that the government will, like, do its job. We are the government. We didn't do our job. We didn't sell this. And we've got to have a reckoning about these kind of things. And that's why I'm saying, what I'm saying about the shibboleth language and stuff, because I'm not willing to change my ethics and my beliefs about something just to save the verbiage of it. That I'm going to sacrifice my ideals on the bonfire of jargon. And that's what effectively happened. And so those voters that, that went the other way are like, oh, I can't believe it or whatever. Well, then the only option we have with those guys is to get them motivated to vote next time. There isn't going to be. And if he gets, but nothing. If he gets unseated, it's going to be because it gets a lot worse than this. It'll have to be a shit ton worse because the Republicans control the House and the Senate. Even if you could say he stole the election, the reality is they have control of both of those houses. So the idea that they're going to impeach him is absurd in the House. The idea that they're going to remove him if we have less than 60 votes in the Senate anytime soon is another story. It's just an impossibility. So chasing it, seems like a great white whale situation. Like we're just, that it's a distraction. It pulls us away from what we can actually do in this interim. And I think the marches are great. I think they're absolutely have an impact. I think the Democrats slow walking everybody in the cabinet that they're putting through and just dragging shit out as long as they possibly can. That means a lot. I think the lawsuits are absolutely working because it brought Kilmar Obrego Garcia back. California is going to sue the Trump administration for the removal of the National Guard, but also for suing for damages. They're going to win.
Yeah.
So we got one of the things is we can't pretend. Right. We can't pretend the system doesn't work just because it works slower than fascism in this situation. And fascism, as much as Trump wants it to be that way, there are enough Republicans who go, oh, shit, he means I got to go, too. There are enough people that they've called rhinos or the Rand Pauls of the world that, they get nervous about this on their alleged ideals or their fear that they will lose power themselves. And again, the problem with an authoritarian leader is there is no ladder. There cannot be a ladder. Putin's got rid of the oligarchs that would challenge him. Xi Jinping was purging people. If Trump does the exact same thing or even goes anywhere near it, the Republicans that go, hey, wait, I was going to be president one day. The Thunes of the world who are absolutely gunning to be president one day are going to be a pushback against this. The difference is when will it be enough? And there are two things that can make it reach that point. One is the natural realization by MAGA that I think will largely be related more to the Epstein files than anything else. As Pam Bondi slow walks that shit, they're going to increasingly go, what the fuck? And that is going to reach a zenith. We have no control over that.
Right.
The other side on ours is to claim all the territory they leave on the fucking ground, and don't let, patriotism, the flag, all those kind of things that they have, the word freedom, when they don't want gays to be able to get married or trans people to live peacefully. We believe in freedom. They don't. So we've given them that fucking word to run with. We got to take it back. And when we do,
100%.
we can stand on those principles and let them flail for a message.
That's right. That's right. And when we're out in the streets on Saturday, they're really, there's no way the media is going to be able to ignore it. They haven't done the best job in covering the protests up until now, but they're going to have to. I have my shirt already, by the way. I have a shirt all set for Saturday. I will be wearing it on Thursday's episode of the Tara Show when we have Malcolm Nance on. I got myself a Let's Go Taco shirt. It says Let's Go Taco 8647. And I mean, because originally I was going to wear the shirt that I'm wearing right now, which is the OG Wonder Woman
shirt,
punching Trump, or have just missed punching him because he ducked because he's a coward. Nothing triggers MAGA like this T-shirt. When I wear this shirt, or I share a picture of this shirt, I always get MAGA coming back going, "Oh, I thought the Democrats were in a violent party. Party of violence." That's not what this shirt says. Wonder Woman stands for truth, justice, and the American way, and Donald Trump does not. That's what this shirt says. That's what this shirt means. And so that's what we're doing out in the streets on Saturday. We stand for truth, justice, and the American way. And Trump does not. And I don't care how many tanks you roll into Washington, D.C., you're going to bust up the pavement with those because the streets of Washington aren't fortified to hold up that kind of military weight. And all the streets are going to buckle and those tanks are going to get stuck. And it's what a perfect visual metaphor for the
and there are so many other counter movements, protests, and that kind of stuff that are happening at the same time all over the country that will draw attention away, and it will water down his stupid gathering. And by the way, I'm not against looking into the last election and that kind of stuff. I'm just saying there is no way you materially make any headway in the House or in the Senate with Trump still in office, period. So we'll deal with that when we come to it. Believe me, there will be a reckoning about the criminality of this administration, but that is not the job in front of us. And this is where, if you're prosecuting a legal case against a murderer or a kidnapper or something like that, you have there are phases of things, and if you get ahead of yourself, you can ruin the whole case. This is, people are watch enough true crime to be aware of this. And there are so many immediate things to deal with that will deal with the people who are being disenfranchised or harmed by his behaviors. That's our primary priority. And then on top of that, stopping the bleeding in that area. And then once his own side and, the whatever Republicans who, again, have some dream of a future for themselves or actually have been deluded that Trump was pro-America, and then they find out, oh, shit, he actually just wants to turn us into China or Russia, those folks will wake up or shut him down from the inside. But again, we can't count on that. Our job is very clear, is to not bite our own backs. There should be no infighting amongst Democrats at all. Everybody's welcome who believes in the individual rights and freedoms that are in the Constitution, and the right for people to live as they choose. And that shouldn't be difficult for these folks eventually to be brought around to, especially the more he fucks up.
That's correct. That is correct. And it's also about us supporting each other, building and strengthening our community, supporting each other. It's continuing to get the truth out above all other things, which matters to me the most, which is why we are here, which is why I ask everybody who is in the chat to sign up for our Substacks. And if you can afford a paid subscription, even better, because supporting independent media is going to continue to be incredibly important at a time where people in the mainstream media are not very inclined to tell you the full truth because they're worried about the repercussions of telling the truth about Trump. Look at ABC News right now.
Right.
And so, my Substack, Hal's Substack, anybody, the Political Voices Network Substack, we are all here for the same purpose. And it really makes the right upset to see us unifying and supportive of each other, because they think that they're the only ones who can do it. And they're not. I mean, we can do it. We just have to get past our own bullshit. And so, we can do it. And it's holding our leadership accountable is absolutely the American way. That's what we elected them. We pay their salaries with our taxes. So there's nothing wrong with demanding better from the
That's
people.
what I've said.
in
Embarrass
power.
him.
And
You can't.
any
Yeah.
American citizen can call any sitting member of Congress for
That's right.
any reason. And so if you're in a blue state, don't get comfortable, don't get complacent. Call the leadership, call the senators from the closest red state to yours, because your state is carrying theirs in some way. Blue states are carrying the red states. It's like Devlin said it during your time with her, that the do-nothing Republicans are letting their states die, and that Democrats aren't capitalizing on that kind of messaging. And we can do that. We just have to keep pushing. At the same time, you know how Hal has a Venmo? I have a Venmo, and I also have a book, The Sound of Settling, a rock and roll love story, which you can buy right now at TowerDublinRocks.com. And every time we succeed, it makes MAGA cry.
That's right.
So
that's right.
And we can just get drunk on the MAGA tears.
Thanks to both Terras for being on with me today and discussing these kind of things. I'm going to
be with us tomorrow at 2/11.
Right.
And
absolutely
Thursday as well.
We will be. And Newsom has just answered Tom Homan's threat to have him arrested. He said, "Arrest me. Let's just get it over with, tough guy. I don't give a damn, Tom. Arrest me. Let's go."
Man.
Yeah.
A double infinity triple dog dare you fucking puss. Yes.
Yeah.
And look, and Trump calling him new scum, and the news outlets picking up on that, and not like, what a fucking child.
Yeah.
Again, just that you tolerate juvenile language.
Look, right, but he also he has control that the states don't have. And so if the governor of California starts calling him chump, for example, Donald Chump, all the time, Donald Chump, I don't know why that hasn't stuck more, Donald Chump, all the time. Because again, Rumpy wouldn't care about, like dumb old Trump, like that doesn't land, but Chump would makes him feel like a loser.
Oh, God.
Well, Taco is the nickname about what he does, not his nickname itself. But I get you with that. But the point I'm trying to make is that if he did that, the president could slow walk an emergency declaration and something like that and harm the citizens of the state. So Trump knows he has power over these folks, that he could, even just doing it for a couple of days, and nobody would be able to, he could do it, and legally there'd be no way to prove that he did it on purpose. He could just push it to late in the day and let people be harmed longer. So the responsibility of the governors is that just like Whitmer had to do, is that if they do these things, if they go, fuck you, dude, it could mean the lives of some of their constituents simply because of the power of the presidency. That's our responsibility. We didn't, if you don't live in California, you didn't vote for Gavin Newsom like I did. Then, and the same thing with Shapiro in Pennsylvania, or any of these folks. What you can do is vote for the presidency and vote for, always and forever the Democrat that's in your area, because the vote blue, no matter who thing means more than it has ever meant before. And if you can't see 100%. The distinction, then you're for the distinction. # Donald Trump. And then
I love it. I love it. We'll make it happen. We'll make it stick to him.
With the picture of him falling on his on his face, like, you know what I mean?
And what was the headline I was supposed to use? You said it early on in this conversation.
Epstein implicates Trump in sex trafficking.
Okay.
That is
I like it.
That would pass all editorial muster. Epstein had implemented.
Implicates Trump in sex trafficking. I'm going to write that article right now.
Yeah, because if you look at go look up the ultimate golf interview, and I think the article in New Yorker was like, what we know about the time Jeffrey Epstein flew on Trump's plane. And by the way, he flew on it multiple times. We just don't have, and we need Trump's flight logs. We need Trump's planes, his private flight logs, because it will be worth more than his taxes ever were. # Donald Trump. Yep. The Trump.
I love it. I love it all.
The Trump administration.
Hal, you're a gift. You're a gift to humanity.
That's what I do.
And everyone just should hang out with you whenever they possibly can.
I insist.
And I look forward to the day that you and I are back in the same city and can hang out.
It'd be
together.
nice. Yes.
It'll happen in September.
Yes. It has to. We'll talk.
It has to.
Thanks
all right,
so
my
much.
friends.
All right.
See you tomorrow on the Tara Show. Bye-bye.
Bye. There she goes, ladies and gentlemen. Tara Dublin, who does indeed rock. Also, this Thursday, I will be in Los Angeles for the Queer as Folk reunion, which will be lovely. And then on the 14th, here in this Saturday, the same day we're going to have these marches. I'm going to do a show at the Sunset Station Casino here in Las Vegas with Nerd Halen. And then on the 24th, we've got the Ultimate Jam Night. We're celebrating live music, so we're doing the best live albums. So I will be closing the show with a full version of 100,000 Years by Kiss, playing and singing, along with some other cool songs that would be very exciting. And a special Nerd Halen appearance on that day as well, the 24th. Yeah, more shows to come. I'm a busy guy. It's crazy. I don't. It's just wild. I'll see you guys this afternoon. I have still not heard whether the QAF event will be live streamed or not. I know they're going to film it, though. So I'll do my best to get a copy of it and share it with you guys. Love the idea of the Soulcraft. I can't wait till we can do that.